Well, we can certainly do what we can to avoid there being a conflict between the interests of starving people in Africa or wherever they might be and the interests of animals in not suffering. So I think we have to try to find solutions that produce a reasonable harmony in the interests of animals and humans wherever we can. But I agree, in the end, sometimes it's not going to be possible. And then we have to decide, how much animal suffering are we prepared to accept in order to prevent some human suffering. And I don't accept the view that humans always take priority over animals. I think it does depend on how much suffering we're going to be inflicting on animals as compared to what humans will suffer.
How do you measure this?
Well, it's very difficult to measure this, but sometimes we can make rough comparisons, I think, to take, for example, large numbers of animals and confine them in factory farms where they are suffering for their whole lives, for the months, weeks, months, whatever it might be that they live in these farms, just so that some humans can enjoy a particular kind of food when they could still nourish themselves from some other food. I think it's clear that the animal suffering then outweighs the interests of the humans in having this particular kind of meal. But if the humans were going to starve to death without killing the animals and eating them, then certainly I think it's justifiable to kill and eat the animals. Well, it's certainly true that there are people in great need, but in fact, what we're doing to animals doesn't help them at all. It actually harms them, because when we put animals inside factory farms, we have to grow food to feed to the animals. They're not eating grass, of course. So we have to grow grain or soybeans to feed them. And in the process just of living and of keeping warm and of putting on bones that we can't eat anyway, they waste most of the food value. So in fact, there would be much more food in the world if we stopped at least the intensive confinement of animals. And that's where most of the animals we're raising for food today are. They're indoors, they're not in the fields. So it's really harming people who are poor rather than helping them.
I agree with you, and I know that you are advocating veganism or at least vegetarianism, but most people, even if they understand that killing and eating animals is not morally good, they still do it for various reasons. They say, I'm used to it, I like such food, etc., etc. How to change the mentality of people?
Well, it's very difficult to change people's habits in this area, but I would suggest, if you can't face the idea of really going vegan or vegetarian, then reduce the amount of meat you're eating. That will help as well, because there will be less animal suffering. If everybody didn't eat meat one day a week, that would already help. And that used to be a Christian tradition, not to eat meat on Fridays. Even if you do it just one day a week, it's a step in the right direction. Or if you try to avoid buying animal products from factory farms, you look for the more organic products from animals able to walk around freely. It may be more expensive, but you can eat less of it and just regard it as a special treat to have occasionally. And in that way, you can still not give up meat entirely or not give up animal products entirely, but you can be healthy and you can feel that you're contributing something to reduce animal suffering.
Do you think the situation will change when artificial meat becomes less expensive?
I think it will. I think that we may actually see a dramatic transformation once we can produce products that either really are meat, because they're grown at the cellular level from the cells of animals, so they really are meat, or if we can produce meat-like products from plants, which is already happening on quite a large scale. So, for example, the American burger chain Burger King already has plant-based burgers in its...
Impossible burgers, something
That's
like
right,
that.
they're called the Impossible Burger because people think it's impossible that this could not be meat. It tastes so much like meat.
Yeah, I've tried one. It's really tasty.
I've tried them too, yes. I mean, it's a long time since I've eaten burgers from meat, but I must say that it does remind me, as far as I can remember, what those burgers were like.
Do you think that future generations will look down on us eating meat on such a global scale, killing animals, and say that these were the barbaric times?
Yes, I really believe that is possible. It may take a while, but think about how we now look back on the Roman Empire and the games that people gathered in the Colosseum, and they watched lions fighting with prisoners or something like that, and we now think of that as completely barbaric. Maybe one day people will look back and say, how could they have been so ethically blind as to treat animals in the way that we are treating them today?